Hello everyone and welcome to Noodle Journey, your destination for detailed and informative reviews of the instant noodle universe. And today I'll be reviewing what is quite possibly the most famous and important instant noodle product of all time. This is Nissin Chikin Ramen. Before we get started, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so I can keep making this content. There is so much to talk about with this that I hope I don't bore you all to death. And first off, let me address the spelling of this product. I didn't make a typo in the intro. This is spelled C-H-I-K-I-N officially, which is of course a phonetic spelling of chicken. And this Nissin Chikin Ramen was the first instant noodle product ever made, first appearing back in 1958 in Japan. It was invented by a guy you may have heard of named Momofuku Ando, and with some crucial assistance from his wife Masako Ando. And yes, David Chang named his company Momofuku as an homage to Momofuku Ando, in case you were wondering. Now, back in the 1950s, Japan was still suffering from food shortages as a result of World War II, and the US was supplying Japan with wheat flour. But the Japanese population was not so huge on bread, and so Ando was determined to figure out how to turn that wheat flour into shelf-stable noodles to help feed his country. And he struggled to figure that out until he saw his wife deep frying tempura in their kitchen, and he had his eureka moment. So he created a flash frying technique that would suck all the moisture out of the noodles for shelf stability, but would still allow them to be rehydrated when introduced to hot water. And so in 1958, his company Nissin Foods launched the world's first instant noodles in this chicken flavor, because Ando figured that chicken would appeal to the most people globally. Anyway, that's the abbreviated version. I will include a link to Nissin's biography of Momofuku Ando in the video description below, where there's tons of videos and articles you can watch or read to learn his story. He was a really fascinating guy, and pretty much a national hero. Like, inventing instant noodles has directly saved people from starvation, which is incredible. So these noodles are that original chicken product and are still being made and sold in Japan to this very day. And if you frequent places like yamibuy.com or surprisingly Amazon Marketplace or your local Asian markets, you can get these outside of Japan just like I did. I paid $10.69 for a 5-pack from Yamibuy, but since this is an imported product, you may see prices all over the place depending on the retailer. There's something else really unique about this pack of noodles that I'll talk about when I open this up, but first, sodium check. I had to translate this with Google Lens. The salt equivalent here is 5.6 grams, so that is in the neighborhood of 2,200 milligrams of sodium, which is around 92% of your daily recommended allowance. There's a pretty high sodium level, but you know what? Ando claimed to eat chicken ramen every day, and he lived to be 96. So it's crazy how high amounts of sodium just don't affect some people. Let me open this up. So check this out. You might notice a couple things unexpected here if you've never seen this variety before. There is no soup powder, no flake packet, just a round block of noodles. You want to know why? This is so cool, and it's not something you really see in a lot of other ramen. The soup powder is bonded with the noodles. So when you add water, this all turns into a soup without the need for a separate powder packet. Super cool. I have no idea why more noodles don't do this, probably something to do with the manufacturing process, but I love how simple it is. You may also be able to see that the noodle block is concave in the middle. That's because this product is generally intended to be cooked with an egg, like you see on the front of the package here. So you would crack an egg right here into the little dip, so that the egg cooks while the noodles steep, which means you're supposed to pour your boiling water right on top of the whites, cover it, and let it sit for 3 minutes. Now, full disclosure, I practiced that once before I filmed this video a few weeks back, using the instructions on Nissin's website, and the problem is that the egg doesn't really cook thoroughly using that method, or the other cooking method, which is just boiling this for a minute. It doesn't look at all like this. I like runny eggs, but the result in practicality is really runny. So I don't recommend it unless you live in a place like Japan where they take extra precautions against salmonella, or unless you're using a fresh egg with the membrane still intact. The risk of getting salmonella in the USA is statistically insignificant, but it is not a 0% chance. So it's your choice if you want to follow those instructions, which I will link to in the video description. My personal advice if you're using refrigerated eggs is to poach your eggs separately and add it after the noodles are cooked. Let me quickly go over what's in the ingredients. This has actual chicken extract and egg powder, along with vegetable oil, soy sauce, salt, onion powder, and various spices. This is real chicken. It is not vegetarian. All right, I already went over the cooking methods. I am going to go steep this since that is the classical method, and I will be right back. Okay, and here we go. And even though you can see the broth is already a dark, rich, chicken-like consistency, you do still have to give these a stir to make sure that all the soup powder is separated. As far as smells, this is not your typical chicken broth aroma. It is a very strong mix of chicken and a toasted smell, more than likely the oil, giving it a kind of artificial roasted vibe. It's a more complex smell than you're probably expecting. So let me dig in here. Alright, so first things first with the noodle score. You may have already noticed from the appearance here that these are basically cup noodles without the cup. So they're the same thin, flat, slightly crumbly, barely chewy noodles that you get from Nissin's cup noodles. And I think they're just okay, as always. It's always more about the broth flavor than the noodle texture with cup noodles, and so I'm giving these my usual score of 5 out of 10. As far as the spiciness score, it is a 0 out of 10 because there is nothing in here that's hot, there's no hidden chili pepper, nothing to worry about there. And so let's talk about the overall score and the flavor here. And let me preface this by saying that a lot of people have a great deal of childhood nostalgia for this flavor and would probably give it a perfect 10. It's totally cool if you feel that way, I get it, but I've only just recently tried this and I don't have the same perspective, so I'm going to talk about it from that point of view. This is pretty good to me, but just shy of great. It is certainly a unique take on a chicken broth flavor, and I can see why it's popular. What you'll taste here is a strong combination of chicken, along with that roasted, toasted flavor I smelled earlier, plus a lot of umami that I'm certain is a mixture of soy sauce, MSG, and sugar, which is adding a tiny little touch of sweetness to even things out. And I think that barely sweet element really needs to be here because the main roasted chicken flavor could come across as slightly bitter, more in the realm of an artificial roast flavor rather than the chicken actually being roasted prior to being powdered. Although I could be wrong about that, it just doesn't quite taste like the real deal. The bitterness is not unpalatable at all, but it's there. So I like this fine. I'm happy to buy it occasionally. But it's definitely not something I'd eat every day like Ando did. And aside from the noodles and the broth, you can see this is completely bare bones. There weren't any green onion flakes hiding in the noodles, unfortunately. And of course, you really should supply your own egg to round this out. It's almost essential to the recipe. So mediocre noodles, but a really unique take on chicken broth that I do find tasty and compelling despite its shortcomings. And even though it's not going to be in any of my top 10 lists, it's certainly miles better than Nissin's American-made sodium bombs of instant noodle chicken broth. This is a competently executed product with a really cool history behind it. I'm giving this a 7.5 out of 10 as an overall score, provided you are willing to add a properly cooked egg to make it a little more complete. So there you go. It isn't my favorite chicken soup, but I completely understand its appeal. If you've never experienced Nissin's original chicken ramen before and you want a simple but unique roasted chicken broth, give it a try and make up your own mind. Keep your expectations in check and you'll find that there's some neat stuff about this flavor. For all of you who've been enjoying this for decades, you don't need me to tell you what you already know, right? That's it for now. I am going to go poach an egg for this and toss in some scallions and canned chicken meat to make this my lunch. Leave me some comments if you're just trying this for the first time and what you think, or if you're a longtime fan, tell me your favorite thing about this flavor. And I hope you'll all join me on the next episode of Noodle Journey.